We're in the period of the offseason where major media publications are starting to publish their player ranking lists for the upcoming NBA season, putting every player in order based on how good they believe that they are at the time. And as is the case every year, these lists create a ton of debate and controversy. To a degree, it can be argued that it's a waste of time to harp on whether a player should be ranked a few spots higher or lower, and if they barely get placed above or below where they should be, but there are a few examples of players very glaringly being overrated, and that brings us to today's video. Today we'll be looking at ESPN's player ranking list, and we'll be discussing the 5 players that I believe are the most overrated on it. Last video I actually went through the players on the opposite end of the spectrum that I believed were the most underrated on the list, so today we're doing the opposite. To clarify, these are not players that I believe are bad by any means, but when compared to others ranked behind them, their placement just isn't right. If you want to read through ESPN's list, it will also be linked in the description. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player that got pretty heavily overrated on ESPN's list that we'll be discussing today is Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics, who was ranked 7th overall. Jayson Tatum has been a player that the media have been waiting to crown for years now, and over the last 2 seasons, he has begun to live up to those superstar expectations, but there just isn't a world where Tatum is the 7th best basketball player right now. Tatum played a massive role in the Celtics making their way to the NBA Finals this year. That much is absolutely true. This wasn't, however, a case of him carrying a heavy load, dragging his team there, and I feel like the boost that he's getting from that run treats him as if it was. The Celtics were a strong team, top to bottom, in their rotation, and everybody played their part during the run, and Tatum and Brown were the ones leading the way scoring-wise, but the players around them played a vital role, performing absolutely dominantly defensively, helping the Celtics rank as the top-ranked defensive unit for the season. Tatum is a very good perimeter shot creator, but his efficiency in the playoffs nosedived inside of the three-point arc weirdly, and his finishing ability is still a work in progress. I know the Celtics destroyed the Brooklyn Nets head-to-head, but I still don't think Tatum should be ranked higher than someone like, say, Kevin Durant, and even a player like Jimmy Butler shined brighter at the same position in the postseason. Tatum is a fringe top 10 talent, being ranked like a bona fide superstar, even though on the biggest stage in the finals, he was kind of a no-show at times. The next player that got overrated on ESPN's ranking list is Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, who got placed 10th overall. Booker is another very good player who I think gets a major benefit of the doubt because of how much of a well-oiled machine his Suns team is. A lot of my thoughts process here honestly relates to my thought process about Tatum just now, in how he's being ranked in the established superstar range ahead of some actual superstars that have been performing at this level a lot longer on teams that aren't as well balanced as the Suns are right now. Booker, for a long time, was underrated in the league because he was the lone star on a rebuilding team that lost a lot. Then Chris Paul came to town, the team brought in some rock-solid veterans to round out the rotation, and they immediately became championship contenders, and I don't think all of that makes Booker individually a much better player than he was before, so we need to find the middle ground here. In the playoffs, the Suns were still able to get the job done in the first round, with Booker missing 3 games in that series, and against Dallas, Booker crumbled in both of the team's closeout games, averaging just 15 points in games 6 and 7, while shooting a miserable 29% from the field in those games. The Suns were the 1 seed and the clear better team, but Booker and Chris Paul both choked the series away, yet Booker has seemingly been rewarded in spite of this being the case. The next player on ESPN's list that I believe got pretty overrated is James Harden of the Philadelphia 76ers, who was ranked 11th overall. Any of you who have been watching my channel for a while now know how much this one hurts me to say, because I've been one of the most pro-Harden guys for a while, but there's just no way to defend this kind of a ranking at this point in time. Harden has been one of the league's premier superstar talents and was consistently in the MVP conversations for years, but last season we began to see that player fade. Ever since Harden's hamstring injuries that came about during the 2021 postseason, he hasn't quite been able to replicate that quick first step on blow-bys or the same separation on his dribble moves that once made him an unstoppable scoring force, and that hampered his overall production last year. Now, do I believe that he's fully washed? No, not at all. He still has unbelievable court vision and a knack for setting up his teammates for easy buckets, having ranked second in assists per game last season. He still scored 22 points per game as well, so it's not like he's not scoring at all, and he and Embiid paired together did make for one of the most dominant duos in the league in terms of net rating, but Harden absolutely needs a bounce back year this upcoming season. After what we saw from him last year, he's probably closer to being a top 20 guy than he is being a top 10 guy like he's ranked here, but if he was able to rest that hamstring properly this offseason and he returns healthier, then maybe he'll work his way back up. The next player that got overrated on ESPN's list is Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics, who was ranked 34th overall. I mentioned this in my video yesterday about the underrated players, but I feel like it has become very easy to hate on star players on bad teams, and alternatively, guys who are the third or fourth options on winning teams have become very easy to overrate comparatively. Obviously, role players performing in those roles are imperative to the success of teams, but just because they're doing what needs to be done from them on a lesser scale doesn't mean they should be ranked above players who are more talented and have been thrust into bigger roles, but can't lead their teams to wins at this point in time. Smart was the winner of the Defensive Player of the Year award this year, which was debatable in and of itself, but there's no denying that he's been one of the best role players in the league for a while now. The problem comes about when you start putting him over actual star talent like we see here. Guys like Darius Garland, LaMelo Ball, Fred VanVleet, and a few others, who are all legitimately all-star caliber players who need to do more for their teams, were ranked behind Marcus on this list. And while I do understand the value of defensive impact, I think this is going overboard with it because no NBA franchise is going to trade their star player for Marcus Smart straight up. And finally, the last player that I believe got a bit overrated on ESPN's ranking list is Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors, who was ranked 37th overall. Before his return this season, Klay had missed 2 full years of play, and obviously everyone was incredibly happy to see him back out there on the court. Before his injury, Klay was a sharpshooting maestro, knocking down threes historically efficiently, and while he was able to still produce at a solid rate after his return, the fact of the matter is that there was a lot of frustrations with his play throughout the year as well. Klay averaged a little over 20 points per game this year, which is definitely good, but he shot below 40% from 3 for the first time in his career, and his decision-making was a nightmare. There were countless times where Klay was out there seeking opportunities for himself to try to build a rhythm, but instead was shooting the Warriors out of games. Because of this, the overall success of the team often took a hit with him out on the court as well, and the Warriors were actually 3 points worse with him on the court in the regular season, and then an insane 11.7 points worse with him on the court in the playoffs. Klay here is being ranked amongst all-star talent and borderline all-star talent, and quite simply, his days in that tier are probably over. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think are some of the most overrated players right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.